But let's get started. Now that you know a little bit of where I'm coming from, sometimes I think it helps because it's like, okay, she gets it, and I do. The first thing I want to show you just across the board is we're going to set up our church codes, like are they in our statuses? Like what do we have? Active, we have inactive, disbanded, mission, you name it. We've got those codes. Maybe codes we don't want them to see, run now. Don't watch the pastor you put in there. You never know. Oh, can you share my screen? So you have to bear with me because I see it always here. I don't always see it there. So for some reason, I have them stop it, and then I don't put it back up. Just wave at me. Say, I have no idea what you're showing us. So in here, if you go in CDM up to File and you go to Master Coding System, and it's going to open up. The Master Coding System is where you set your groups and everything. And hopefully my system held the... Nope. All right, hang on. You guys want to be able to see. Just give me 1 second.
One thing I failed to mention is they had asked us if you could turn the Wi-Fi off on your cell phones.
Oh.
It will help us to keep us from crashing. And also bathrooms are, you go to the elevator and go on down the hall and turn to the right, bathrooms are there on the first and second floor.
Well, my little Zoom thing isn't working, so we're going to... Hopefully y'all can see, because the Zoom, I'll have to figure out why it's not working. But in here, you've got different things. So you've got, if you're in your program and you want to go up to File and Master Coding System and follow along, you can. So you have your codes, and the codes have all address records, your church contributions. These are the different areas of the program that you can set. So for example, if I was to highlight church, I have your church status. And so I can add what different statuses. Currently, I've put in here active, disbanded, and missions. And if you want to add one, you simply click down at the bottom, add code. And then you can put, something else, mission 2, because my mind isn't going to think of it all. And that simply adds that. So when we go to the church record, you're going to see where we added mission 2 to that, so that you can code all of these churches for whatever kind of status you want. District or regions, and I'll show you in a minute where we can change that to region. So in districts, if you've got districts over here in this column, you see I put Akron, Canton, Cleveland, Columbus. All you have to do is click this add code and it's going to add another district. If you have in your districts, they're added there, but they have a name next to it, and that pastor or minister is no longer the district overseer. All you have to do is just come in here, click in it, and then you can type in the name. And that will update it for you, okay? If you were to go to individual records, you'll see different things like rank, for example, and you can type in the different ranks of ministry. I've typed in 5 of them. The exhorter, minister of Christian education, minister of music, ordained bishop, ordained minister. You can do, I think some people for rank, they do like non-licensed, whatever you want there. This is where you can pull, because whenever you're doing, no matter what it is that you do in the system, think with the end in mind. What kind of reports do I need to generate? How do I want to search? Do I need to, at some point, pull all of my exhorters? Then I need to have a rank. Do I see a list of maybe my pastors who are non-licensed? Then I need to create a rank there, so then I can pull and see everybody who is non-licensed. So on anything you do, no matter where you are in the system, think with the end in mind. What kind of a result am I going to need? Now, that being said, if you didn't realize I might want this, you can always come back in here and fix it. You can come in and rename it. If they decide to call this, exhorters something else, you can click in here and type in something. I mean, they used to not be called this. It was like what? Exhorter, license, and I can't remember the last one because it's been a long time since we've used those. But when they changed that to recognize them as bishops and things like that, you would come right into this master coding system and change it, okay? We're going over this because, as you're going to see in our church record, this is where those drop-downs pull from, okay? There are other things, family status, all these different genders. You can come in here, and you can add that if you want. By default, it's just obviously the male and female. So you're just going through here. Now with groups, when you click on groups, if you click on church, and you want to add groups for church, or like in individuals, for example, in individuals, we want rosters because we want to tie people as a children's pastor. This isn't necessarily it is their position, but just like, there's so many different things in rosters you could have. State council, you could add those in there if you want to do it on that side. You could have, I put in here, pastor emeritus, retired, senior pastors, missionaries. You can do that. Again, if I wanted to pull a report of all my missionaries, I can create a roster of missionaries or a group, and they call them in here like rosters of missionaries. And that will give them all to me. I can change the name here of rosters. If I double click it, and I'll show you, or up at the top, you can click rename. You can also add. If you click add group type, you can sit there and add any one. So let's say I wanted to rename something here. I can click rename, and it's going to let me rename rosters to whatever I want. If I want to add a roster, I simply click add group, and then I can put in what I want to add. User fields. We're going to touch a little more on this when we get into the windows, but user fields can be an extremely, extremely powerful thing. It's pretty cool. In fact, I know there's at least one state in here, or almost all paperless, because they use the user fields to upload everything. Because with user fields, you can choose, if you choose raw data, you can upload a document. So I have, if you click on church, for example, there's documentation. I created this. So I created documentation. Well, okay, historical documentation, loan information. Maybe the documentation from them changing their names or their incorporation. Think of the paperwork that you get for that church. You can take it and upload it to the church record through the user field, and it's there. And I'll show you, we can retrieve it, you can view it, you can download it, and all of that. It's very powerful. That raw data allows you to do those types of things. The other thing you can do, there's a yes, no, so you could have like a question, with it, and you can type yes or no. You can do a date and a time. So like at our church, we do for background checks and when they expire. So then I can pull a report of when my background checks are going to expire, of everybody who needs to get a new background check. When I say this is a very powerful tool, you see the endless possibilities. Like when I learned about uploading documents and date and time and pulling reports from it, I was mind blown. Like, there's so much I want to do with this. Like, I could do this and I could do that. And then I'm like, I have to have time to do this and I have to have time to do that. So we're not all there yet. That's where, winter comes, right? Because at some point we have time for that. What about your deed papers, incorporations? Just to give you some ways that you could do. And this is just under church. If you click on individual, you can add your own there. So notice they have background checks. You just set it for a date, personal connections, trainings, like did they go through this type of training? You have that information on the individual records as well, but you can upload any kind of documents that you want. Does that make sense to everybody? Because I think, at least in the day and age of being able to try not to have a ton of files, or like I'm at camp meeting and somebody needs something, and how many times is it sitting in the state office and you are at least an hour or two away from the state office, and there is no possible way you're going to be able to get that document for that church because they need their deed or whatever. You can go and click into CDM right there, open up that church record, and you can see that documentation that you uploaded. You do have to do the work to get it up there, but once you get that done, it's very helpful. Before I end, now I know we have, I think they told me 93 people. I am very much a Q&A person. I also know we have 93 people. But I don't mind, every once in a while, I can ask, like if we have a question, take one, maybe two, if needed throughout the week. But that all being said, if you do have questions, whether it's regarding the stuff I'm going over, or we've talked to state office procedures, if things start coming to your mind as we walk through, email them, I have it, email them to wmdirector@wvcog.com, so West Virginia. That's going to go to Miss Jan. She will get those to me, and then we'll take some time to answer those questions, okay? That being said, does anybody do you understand this particular portion before we actually go into using this and putting it to action? Do you have any quick questions? Yeah, so I'm actually getting ready to look at that. Yes, I did at the conference, the way I have it set. Why it's not doing it now, I'm about to take a second to find out, because when we hit accounting especially, you're going to need that. It's supposed to click and zoom, and it is just not doing it. So it might be this window, so when we go to the other window, I'll let you know. If not, we'll figure something else out. Maybe my wonderful tech guy's back there. I see his wheels spinning. So if it doesn't work, I might have to hit you up here in a minute. All right, let's get started with, let's put in a church, okay? So if you go to program, you'll see, hold on, let's try it. Why is it not working? You'll see regional, and you want to click on church records. All right, let's see if it works on this. Why is my accessibility not working? I am going to pause because you guys really do need to see. Is it because of the way you guys have it set in the cable? Let me try it again. Let's see. Okay, let me try this. Let me try it one more time. I think I know what I did. Ha ha. All right, look at that, guys. Now we can see. Yay. Let's center this puppy up. Is that better? Oh my gosh, that's so much better. We were going to drown tomorrow if that was not going to be fixed. I got it, though. All right, so church records. This is where you list your churches. You do not list your churches in address record. Those are for the people. So church records, and this is that flow, okay? So you have your churches, and in your churches, and we'll go over this, you can see the people that are connected to that church. Just by clicking members, you can see everybody who says that they belong to that church, okay? There is also address records. Address records, it's the family. It's the home. So think of it this way. I have a family in my house of 4 right now. Those are the people that live in my house. That's my address record. An address record is where you put in the mailing address and things like that. We're going to go through this. So the address record is the house. That's where they live. Then in there, you'll see individuals. Those are the individual people that live inside the home. So individual records are going to be all 4 of us. Myself is going to have one, my husband, and then my 2 kids that are still living in my house. They're going to be an individual that's connected to that address. Well, in the individual record, that's where I can put my phone number, like my cell phone. I can put my husband and his information. I can put our, and we'll go through all this, but I can put our anniversary. I can put birth dates. All the information that's personal to me goes into my my individual record. You don't have that option in the address record because you don't need that for the family, right? All 4 of us don't have a birthday in October. So you want to use the individual record for that. Ministers. I'm not a minister. My husband is. Even if I was, I would have a different minister number, right? That information, then would it go in my address or the individual record? Individual. So think of it that way. If I'm talking about the house, the whole family, I go to the address. If I'm talking strictly for the church, I'm going to the church record. If I need to put in information regarding a specific person or groups like youth pastors, children's pastors, senior pastors, pastor's wife, all these groups that you can have, state council, all that, addresses aren't going to be for that, right? Because it's not the whole family that got elected to the state council. Could you imagine? It would be interesting for sure. But all my kids in there for their meetings, that would be funny. But individually, I can put each person and where they go. So that's the flow. And they're connected, and we'll show you how they connect. But that's why it's important to know the difference. I'm not going to add a church into the address record, right? Because there's information about this church that I can't put into the address record. The church record has that information. For example, you have your church code. Let me see if I can even go a little further. Ha ha ha. Okay. So you have your church code. That's not going to be in the address information. None of this like that is. The only thing that would be similar to an address record would be their address. So I want the church information to go in here. Their date that they're organized, the members how many members were there when they got organized, when they started reporting, on and on. All of this information goes in here. I, as an address record, our family is not part of a district. I mean, we are if you want to go down that route for each family, but our churches get connected to the districts, right? So that's why in the master coding system, you go to church to code in all your districts. And that I coded here as district. And we'll go over about the terms here in just a little bit and how you can change pretty much any field that's here, you can rename to whatever you want. Where that's really, really cool is like individual records. Maybe I don't need a specific field, but man, it'd be really nice to know this about this person. Rename the field. You don't need that field anyways. Doesn't matter what school maybe that person went, the people go to, but you want to know what, something else for them. You can rename those fields. So any field in the system, almost any field, you can go in and rename. And we'll go through that in preferences in a little bit. So let's add a record. I'm going to back this out a little bit. Hold on. There we go. Anything on the side in any record window that you're at, no matter where in the system, if it's not there, you don't need it. You can't do it. So for example, delete's not here. I don't have a record. So whatever you see is what you're able to use for that window at that moment. So right now, we want to add. We're only going to add one church, but if we're going to add two, well, we'll add two. Single of add, like here, once you click save, it's done. It's saved. What you'll see when you do multi-add, when I hit save, it gives me a new record. And again, no matter the record window you're at, even in accounting, multi-add, when you hit save, it's a blank one. Where this is a very good time saver is you got a lot of data to put in, and you hate going to the mouse to hit add every single time, do multi-add. And then when you're done, you can hit save. And then when it's a blank record, hit finish. But let's add one. So we want to do a church code. I am short, so I'm going to move this and scooch this up. So we'll put a church code in here. We'll do a church name. By default, it drops the label name down. Make this so you guys can see a little better. Is that better for you guys? Yes. Especially in the back? Yes. Okay, good. The address, so you put in the address. Okay, and so on. Country, 2 digits, so not USA. If you do like bulk mailing and you have your carrier, all that information, you can do all of that. We do have a where you can upload it to us. We send you all those labels and stuff if you do bulk mailing and you need it through us. Date organized, let's just put in a date. I know it's definitely older than that, and then let's just say they organized it with 200 members. We started reporting. Why not start report on the 15th, on the 1st as well? EIN numbers. Remember when we added mission 2 in the user, the master coding system? This is where that's at. So it came right there. Let's say, though, I didn't add it, and I needed to add something else. You can do it on the fly. You can just type it in and hit save. So like, it's going to ask you, it doesn't exist, would you like to add it? When you click yes, it will add it to the system and be available in the drop-down list. Yeah, and so then your status here, we're going to say it's active for the sake of doing things here in the future. Date, you can do, this isn't a required field. This is probably going to be more what you guys for us, we put the date that it was entered in or what have you. What's the right, wrong way to do that? Again, that goes back to those state office systems. Everybody has their own system. It would be great if we all had the same system, so when overseers moved, like they understood why we do what we do. Yeah. I have a great story tomorrow for that. That's always fun. So in here, we're going to put the district, so we'll put that he's right here. Any notes that you want or what have you. There are a couple things that are important to keep in mind with the church record. Right now, as it stands, if I hit save, I do not have an active church. But I put active right there. Why don't I have, that makes sense. There is a very important box you have to check. And I get these questions with disbanded churches. Why are they still printing on my church directory? We put the code disbanded. Why are they still printing? This box right here that says congregation is the most important box you'll have in the church record. This box is what makes the church an actual church in the system. If you have a church that's active, but you don't have that box checked, guess what? It ain't going to print on any church directory. No matter what you try to do, it's not going to do it, unless I guess you could do that are non-active churches. But when this is checked, now my church is organized. Now my church is active. It's very important to have that. Directory, newsletter, these are for reports. You can, without maybe filtering, saying I want the Akron district, I just want anything that's marked for directory, and it will do that. It'll print it for the directory. The other thing that's important, how many people have a mailing address, but it's their P.O. box? Or the pastor says, listen, nobody's there. It's rare that they're there. I work, we come on Sundays. Can you mail it to my house? So if I want to mail it then to the house, I can change that here. So let's do that. Let's just do... Okay, so now I've set it to mail to the pastor. physical address, though, because my overseer does need to know where the church is, because they got an appointment, and they went to Testing Way instead of to where the church is. Has that happened to anybody? I see some smiles like, yeah. You definitely want to check if it's going to not be the location of the church. Please save your overseer some stress on a Sunday morning when he's like 15 minutes from the church when he arrived at the pastor's home. That's just, could you imagine? That it happens, though. It really does. So we're going to uncheck this. And now he knows right where it's at. Okay? Those are some key things that you really do want to keep in mind, especially this mailing and physical in the sense of sending out labels and you've not done this and you just put the church's address and it keeps coming back because they might not have set things up, for it or whatever the case may be. When you do it like this, you can have that separation. Okay? I'm doing my best to keep my voice. I actually probably should drink my tea, so I'm reminding myself to stay hydrated. I don't always do that. Phone numbers. Oh, you guys can't see that. Down here, you can click Add Phone. You can say that this is a primary phone, because this is obviously going to be the church's phone. You can even put a note. You could say, pastors, if I can type. So maybe the pastor has their cell phone as their church phone number because they're just a really small church, or it's a mission church and he doesn't quite have a building yet. Notes are great next to it, so you're not calling, you're calling the church, but you're really going to have the pastor answer, and so on. So this is where you can add phones. You can add as many as you want. If they don't want it listed in the directory, you can check that box. Same with emails. You can type emails. Let's do, and so on. Okay? We'll go more in depth when we hit contributions on what a giving unit is, but this is where this is one of the places that you can set the giving unit for the church. This is not the individual's giving unit, okay? This is the church. And it'll make more sense if you don't know what I'm talking about. Just put a little pin in it. It'll all make sense when we hit contributions, okay? So then you can change this code to whatever you want. It doesn't have to be both numerical and alphabetical alphabetical letters, things like that. You can do whatever you want with it. You can put the church code in there and let that be their giving unit. Okay? Groups. Remember we had some church groups in here? Or no, we didn't. We set those other. If you want church groups, and this goes back to state office systems and what works for you. We didn't really have a lot of church groups because it was, I'm going to send it to all my active churches, or we used the districts. You can, whatever you want. Again, think with the end in mind. If you need to break it down even more, you can add groups here and do it that way. Chances are, most of the time, you do those based off of district or the church status. But this is where you do that. At master coding system under groups, you'll see that church like we were showing you earlier. User fields. Oops, sorry, I jumped it.
Hang on a second, Jen. We have some that use for church code for the giving unit.
Yeah.
That they use their church code.
Say that again.
The file number for the church code.
Yeah, for their giving unit.
For the giving unit.
Yeah, that's why you want to do whatever you want with that, because it's easier when you've got a church giving unit and they're giving. It's much easier to use their number because nobody else has that number. Again, systems thing, but if it was me, when I'm dealing with churches like that, use that church number. It's just going to save you. I mean, how many, praise temples do you have in your state? or whatever the common popular name is for this, next 5-10 years. They would always, if you ever wanted to drive, so my grandma, some of you might remember her. If you ever wanted to drive my grandma nuts, change your church name. Oh my goodness, we would hear time. These pastors changed their name of their church like they changed their socks. I wish they would remember how much they got and blah, 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 blah. It was the best. I would just sit there and listen, and I'm like, okay. She would go off, but they do change it a lot. And so because of that, I would encourage you to use the code. Or like in Akron, we have a few churches in Akron. Akron is not a small city. So because of that, we want to don't just use Akron. You know what I mean? But you can do whatever you want with it. Again, this comes back to that state office systems. It would be great if we had a universal system that we all knew used the church code. And again, then when the overseer comes or something else happens or you move states, we got overseers and their wives that do the books or keep up with things because they don't have a staff. If they knew, oh, that's what that is. This is how I set that up. If they do that, then it doesn't throw them when they go to a different state as far as that goes. With the user fields, if you want to add, just click down here and you see under type, if I would highlight this, I want to add, say, a documentation. So I highlight the documentation, add the user field, and there are those 4 that we had listed in there. Those are the ones that I just kind of threw in. Well, let's say we want to do historical documentation. Because I set it as raw data, now when I click load, it's going to say, okay, what file do you want? And then you can choose your file. And it uploads. Let's see, do that. And then you can retrieve it, you can preview it, and so on. You can add more if you wanted to. You just simply, let's say I want to do, look at my typo. I want to do something for the property, add user field, deed papers, and add what you want there. Okay. Map, if you have the address, it's going to map it. You can import the file. It's going to map it on your mobile. And here you can put files, clipboard. There's so much. There's info here is what I really want to get to some of these. I had all these moved last night, and I had to fix that this morning. So we're going to go down here. Okay. Info. If you have directions, how many miles, where the parsonage is located, it's a way to keep things kind of all together at once. We kind of get a little out of the way here. If you want to let them know, your overseer, know where this is at, you can put that so they know where the parsonage. If you want to use this box for something else, you can go in and we'll show you, when we show you the terms, I could change that parsonage location to something else. If Sunday worship times, and they need to know when church starts. If we know it, put it in there. The overseer doesn't have to, hopefully he's text the right number to try to get that time that the service starts and pray that they respond. We've got it because we put it into the system. We can get that information for them. Same with the property, debt, value. It's just information on the church. The stats, we're not going to have any in here yet. And on Thursday, we're going to talk a lot about treasurer's reports. So there'll be a couple of things we're getting ready to hit. I'm going to say, hold on. We'll do more about that when we talk about treasurer's reports. However, in the stats, your current membership, morning worship, tithe records, all of these things, they can be updated. They get updated as they report. Okay? As you do the treasurer's reports, they update. That doesn't mean I can't go in here and click include on overseer's report. I'm going to jump this window every time. And put in whatever their current membership is. We know they started with 200. Morning worship, let's just say they had this much in the morning worship. So you can put that information in so that it's there. Then as they report, that gets updated. Same with this stuff here. And we'll show you that more on Thursday. And that's where, like, the awards when we talk about work. I have it on here for today, but I'm going to wait because we really need to talk about treasurer's reports because that's where you get your awards information. So it'll tie together when we talk about the treasurer's reports, okay? But this is where you can see all of that, and we'll display that Thursday. All right. For those who are in accounting, since we're in here. Their ACH, if you don't know, you can set up to have, when you process the treasurer's report, that it pulls the money out of the church's account when you process it. If you don't process the treasurer's report, it's not going to give you the money. So if you leave it in there or you manually type the report, they're not going to have that. But you can set it for the church to, when you, when you do it, and I'm not going to do it on this database because they're getting all that set up for us on this. This is a test database, but you can set it. You turn it on. I cannot stress enough, do not assume the church has a business checking account, because I promise you it will bounce back so fast. And most of the time, it's like, I have that number right. I know that's right. I've checked it. You call them. You make sure the number's right. So you do it again, and it bounces back again. A lot of churches really do have personal checking accounts because they try to save money. They don't always have it. You really need, and if it was me and you have a form that for them to fill out, with all that information and they sign off, make sure you have them check whether it is a personal or a business checking account, because if not, your books are going to be gorgeous, full of all kinds of stuff, because you kept processing, not knowing, and then it keeps coming back. And it's like, oh my gosh, what is wrong? They had a personal account. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a point when that's actually going to be fixed and work?
Personal and business?
Well, no, just being able to input your ACH information. I've got 3 churches waiting to be able to put their information.
You can put their information in.
No, it won't save it.
It won't save it.
It will not save it.
Okay. Let me make a note. I don't have a pen. Jan, can you make a note for me?
Yes.
Just so I'll check on the status of that, because.
We've got several that are saying they have that same problem.
Okay. We'll look, and then tomorrow when we work on accounting, help me remember that, and then I'll have an answer on the status of it saving that information, because I thought it all worked, but I can definitely check on that for you. But you fill out this information, authorized by, and so on. Now, remember those user fields that we talked about? This would be a great user field, like ACH authorization form, and upload it, because if they change their bank again and again and again, because the pastor just loves to do that to save a penny, which is not wrong, but good night, that poor secretary. But if they change their banks again and again, you can keep uploading so you have the history of all the times they change. You can look back at the different authorization forms that they had with the dates and all of that. You can upload it then. Okay? Great way to use the user fields, because you have that information in here. Okay? But you got to have this set right here in order for them, when you process that report, it pulls the money out of the bank. Okay? Now, if you haven't set up a merchant account with us to do any kind of online giving, and that has to be done first. And just reach out, and customer service and sales can help you get that done. Members, I'll show you when we're saved, because obviously this is a new church. I don't have anybody connected to this church. Once we get them connected, and we'll show you that here in a second. Same with past members and so on. The notices tabs across the board, so I'm only going to talk about it in this window because it's the same. If you send an email out and it's a church email, it will show up in the church record. If you send an individual email out, it will show up under the individual record. If you send an address email out, guess what window it's going to show up in? So if you go to look and see, I know I emailed them this, I know it, but I can't find it, and you're on the individual record, but you sent it under church, go to church. You'll see it in there. It gives you the history of the notices that have been sent to whichever window you're in. Same with contributions. Any questions? It's not hard to put it in. It's all data. It's just straight type. So we're done. We're going to hit save. And because I did multi-add, it's going to give me a fresh blank record so I can start putting in another church. Okay? I'm done putting in churches. I'm back to a blank record, so I don't need to save anything. I can just click finish. And again, that process there goes right with any window that you're in, no matter where. Accounting, contributions, here, multi-add. When you're back at a blank record, just click finish and you'll be done. Okay. Notice though, well, let's go back to, before we leave church records, does anybody have any questions on church record that maybe I overlooked, I missed, anything like that?
Just one question, when we were talking about the church code, using that and giving unit. If you have another number in there and you want to change that to church code, then if you change it there, what happens? Does it
Yeah, and this is a good question. So the question is, if I have the giving unit code as the church code, and then it gets changed, what happens to the other? Well, it changes it. Like that's their code now. Anything in the past, you want to look it up, it says, as you'll see when we do contributions, they're all connected. They have a giving unit. This was created as kind of a shortcut, and we'll see about giving units and contributions. But if I wanted, I could go to the giving unit record and hit add and put all that information too and connect it that way. It's easier, it's faster, and we'll see that here in an address record, to do it here because I don't have to go to multiple windows. I'm queen of just get this done, less steps the best. And so if you do that here, well, you can go in here or the giving unit record and change it, and that's changing it across the board because all the giving is connected to that giving unit. Great question.